The blood on the snow told Harper Ellsworth everything she needed to know about how the night had gone, and her heart sank like a stone dropped into a frozen well. She stood at the edge of her pasture in the pale dawn light of February, 1883, staring at the crimson trail that led from the sheep pen into the dark tree line of the New Mexico wilderness surrounding Pinos Altos. 3 lambs gone in as many nights, and she was running out of options faster than she was running out of sheep. The ranch her father had left her 6 months ago was bleeding away one animal at a time, and Harper knew that, without those lambs growing into wool producers, she would lose everything before spring turned to summer. She pulled her worn coat tighter around her shoulders and followed the blood trail with her eyes, not daring to go into those woods alone. The wolves had gotten bolder since the heavy snows had driven the deer down from the mountains, and now they seemed to view her small flock as an easy feast. Harper was 22 years old, alone on this ranch except for an aging sheepdog named Rusty who was too arthritic to do much more than bark warnings, and she had no idea how to stop the predators from destroying everything she had left of her father's legacy. She turned back toward the small cabin that served as her home, her boots crunching through the crusty snow. Smoke rose from the chimney where she had left the fire burning, and she could see Rusty's face in the window, waiting for her return. The town of Pinos Altos was only 3 miles down the mountain, but it might as well have been 300 for all the help she had gotten from the townspeople. Most of them thought a woman had no business running a ranch alone, and they had made it clear they expected her to fail and sell out to one of the larger cattle operations in the area. Harper refused to give them the satisfaction. Her father, Henry Ellsworth, had spent 15 years building this small sheep ranch from nothing, and she would be damned if she let it fall apart in her first year of ownership. But wanting to succeed and knowing how to succeed were 2 very different things, and right now, Harper was running short on both ideas and time. She was halfway back to the cabin when she heard the sound of hoofbeats on the road. Harper turned to see a rider approaching from the direction of town, sitting tall in the saddle on a big gray gelding. As he drew closer, she could make out a young man around her age, maybe a year or 2 older, with dark hair visible beneath his wide-brimmed hat and a heavy coat that looked well worn but cared for. He slowed his horse as he approached, and Harper found herself looking up into a pair of striking green eyes that seemed to take in everything about her situation in a single glance. "Morning, miss," he said, touching the brim of his hat. "Name's Adam Brooks. I heard in town you might be having some trouble with wolves." Harper studied him warily. She had learned not to trust offers of help that came without strings attached. "News travels fast. Small town," Adam said with a slight smile, "and I happened to be in the general store when Mrs. Patterson was talking about how she had heard the wolves howling last night. She mentioned they seemed to be coming from this direction." He shifted in his saddle, and Harper noticed the rifle in the scabbard at his knee and the well-worn revolver at his hip. "I have some experience with predators. Used to work a cattle ranch up in Colorado before I came south. Lost plenty of calves to wolves and mountain lions until we figured out how to protect the herds properly." "And what would you want in exchange for this help?" Harper asked, crossing her arms. "I do not have much money to spare." Adam shook his head. "I am not looking for money. Truth is, I am between jobs right now. I came to New Mexico looking for ranch work, but most of the cattle outfits around here have full crews for the winter. I am staying in a boarding house in town, and my savings are running thin. I was thinking maybe we could work out a trade. I will guard your flock at night and help you reinforce your defenses during the day. In exchange, you provide me with meals and a place to sleep. Nothing fancy, just somewhere warm and dry. I can bed down in your barn if you have one." Harper considered the offer. It was true that she had a small barn, and it was certainly warm enough with the sheep sheltered there at night. She also had more food than she could eat alone, thanks to the garden she had put up last summer and the chickens that still provided eggs despite the cold. What she did not have was any reason to trust a stranger, no matter how sincere he seemed. "How do I know you are who you say you are?" she asked. "How do I know you are not just planning to rob me blind once I let you close enough?" Adam nodded as if he had expected the question. "That is fair. I can give you the name of my last employer in Colorado. Simon Hartley runs the Double H Ranch outside of Durango. You could wire him if you want a reference. I can also leave my horse and my guns with you during the day until you feel comfortable." A man does not leave his horse and weapons unless he plans on staying honest. There was something in his eyes that made Harper want to believe him. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe it was the genuine quality of his voice, but she found herself nodding before she had fully thought it through. "All right, but we do this on a trial basis. You help me get through the next week without losing any more lambs, and we will talk about a longer arrangement." "That sounds more than fair," Adam said, dismounting from his horse. He was taller than Harper had expected, probably close to 6 feet, with broad shoulders and the lean build of someone who spent their days doing hard physical labor. "Why don't you show me your setup, and I will tell you what I think we need to do." Harper led him toward the sheep pen, pointing out where the wolves had been getting in and where she had found the blood trails on the previous mornings. Adam walked the perimeter slowly, examining the fence line and the surrounding terrain with the careful attention of someone who knew what they were looking for. "Your fence is too low," he said finally. "Wolves can jump this easily, especially when they are motivated by hunger. We need to add at least another 2 feet of height, and we should string some bells along the top rail. That way, if they try to jump it, the noise will alert us." He pointed toward the tree line. "We also need to clear back those trees at least 20 yards. Wolves like to have cover close to their prey. If we make them cross open ground, they will be more hesitant to attack." "That is a lot of work," Harper said, feeling overwhelmed. "It is," Adam agreed, "but it is necessary if you want to keep your flock safe. We can start today if you are willing. I will cut the trees, and you can help me haul the wood back for your fire. Nothing wasted that way." Harper found herself agreeing, and within an hour, she and Adam were working side by side. He had removed his heavy coat and was swinging an axe with practiced efficiency, dropping the smaller pines that had crept close to her pasture. Harper used a rope and her determination to drag the felled trees back toward the cabin, where she sectioned them into firewood with a smaller axe. It was hard work, harder than anything she had done in weeks, but there was something satisfying about it too. For the first time since her father had died, Harper felt like she was actually making progress instead of just trying to hold back the tide. They worked until the sun was high in the sky, and Harper's stomach was growling loudly enough that Adam could hear it. He paused in his chopping and grinned at her. "I think that is nature's way of saying it is time for a meal break." Harper felt her cheeks warm with embarrassment, but she nodded. "I have stew from last night. It is not fancy, but it is filling." "That sounds perfect," Adam said, shouldering his axe. They walked back to the cabin together, and Harper found herself sneaking glances at him. He moved with an easy confidence that spoke of someone comfortable in his own skin, and there was a kindness in his eyes that she had not seen in many people. Most of the men in Pino's Altos looked at her with either pity or calculation, trying to figure out how to take advantage of her situation. Adam just looked at her like she was a person, a partner in solving a problem, and Harper realized how much she had missed being treated with simple respect. Inside the cabin, Harper ladled out bowls of thick venison stew while Adam washed up at the basin near the door. The cabin was small, just one main room with a sleeping loft above, but Harper kept it clean and organized. Her father's books still lined the shelf near the fireplace, and his reading chair sat empty in the corner. She had not been able to bring herself to move anything yet. "This is good," Adam said after his first bite. "Really good. You make this yourself?" "My mother taught me to cook before she died," Harper said, settling into the chair across from him. "That was 10 years ago. It has been just my father and me since then, until he passed last September." She was not sure why she was sharing so much with a stranger, but something about Adam made her feel safe. "I am sorry for your loss," Adam said quietly. "Losing family is never easy. I lost my mother when I was young too. My father raised me and my 2 brothers on his own. He died 5 years back, and we sold the family farm to settle his debts. My brothers went east to find factory work, but I could not see myself inside all day. I have been moving from ranch to ranch ever since, learning the trade." "Do you miss them, your brothers?" "Every day," Adam admitted. "But we write when we can. They are doing well in Philadelphia, both married now with families of their own. They keep asking me to join them, but I cannot imagine living in a city. This is where I belong, out here where you can see the sky." Harper understood that sentiment completely. She had never wanted to live anywhere but these mountains, even when life got hard. There was something about the vast open spaces and the clean air that felt like freedom. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and then Adam asked about her sheep. Harper found herself telling him about how her father had started with just 20 ewes and built the flock up to nearly 100 over the years. Wool prices had been good, and they had made a decent living, enough to get by comfortably. But since her father's death, Harper had struggled to manage everything alone. The shearing, the lambing, the constant maintenance of the ranch, it all seemed overwhelming when there was only one pair of hands to do it. "You have been doing all this yourself?" Adam asked, looking impressed. "That is remarkable. Most people would have given up by now." "I have thought about it," Harper admitted, "but this place is all I have left of my parents. If I give up on it, I give up on them too." Adam nodded slowly. "That makes sense. Well, you are not alone anymore, at least not for now. We will get your ranch back on its feet together." The simple assurance in his words made something loosen in Harper's chest, a tightness she had not even realized she was carrying. She blinked back unexpected tears and focused on her stew, not trusting herself to speak. After lunch, they went back to work. Adam finished clearing the tree line while Harper started stripping branches and cutting the wood into manageable pieces. By the time the sun was setting, they had cleared a significant area and stacked enough firewood to last Harper through the rest of the winter and into spring. Adam had also taken measurements for the fence improvements and made a list of materials they would need from town. "I can ride into Pino's Altos tomorrow and pick up the supplies," Adam offered as they walked back to the cabin in the gathering dusk. "If you give me a list of anything else you need, I can get it all in one trip." Harper started to protest that she could go herself, but the truth was that having Adam make the trip would save her time and effort. "All right, I will write out a list tonight, but I will give you the money. I pay my own way." "I would not have it any other way," Adam said with a smile. That night, after a dinner of cornbread and beans, Adam bedded down in the barn with the sheep while Harper retreated to her cabin. She sat in her father's chair with a cup of tea, staring into the fire and thinking about the strange turn her day had taken. This morning she had been alone and desperate. Tonight she had help and hope, even if it was only temporary. She knew better than to count on anything lasting, but for now, she would accept the gift of Adam's assistance and try not to worry about what would happen when he eventually moved on. In the barn, Adam settled into the hay with his rifle across his lap and his bedroll spread beneath him. The sheep rustled and shifted around him, their presence oddly comforting. He had meant what he said to Harper about needing work and a place to stay, but there was more to his offer than simple practicality. The moment he had seen her standing in that snowy pasture, looking lost and determined all at once, something had shifted in his chest. She had the kind of beauty that came from strength rather than decoration, with dark hair pulled back in a practical braid and brown eyes that seemed to see right through pretense. But more than that, she had a quality he could not quite name, a combination of vulnerability and fierceness that made him want to help her, to protect her, to be worthy of the trust she was placing in him. Adam had never been one to believe in love at first sight. He had always thought that kind of thing was for dime novels and romantic poetry, not for real life. But he could not deny that something had happened when Harper had looked at him with those wary, hopeful eyes. He had felt it like a hook setting in his heart, a pull toward this woman and this place that had nothing to do with logic and everything to do with feeling. He shook his head at his own foolishness and focused on the task at hand. Right now, Harper needed someone to keep her sheep safe, not someone mooning over her like a lovesick boy. There would be time later to figure out what these feelings meant, if there was anything to figure out at all. For now, he would do the job he had promised to do and prove that he was a man of his word. The night passed quietly, with no sign of the wolves. Adam dozed lightly, waking at every sound, but nothing came close to the barn. When dawn broke, he found Harper already awake and making breakfast. She invited him into the cabin, and they ate together while discussing the plan for the day. "I will ride into town this morning," Adam said, reviewing the list Harper had given him. "Fencing wire, bells, nails, and these few food staples. I should be back by early afternoon, and we can start on the fence improvements." Harper nodded, counting out money from a small tin she kept hidden in the cupboard. Adam tried not to notice how little was left after she gave him what he needed for the supplies. It was clear that she was running on financial fumes, and the loss of even a few more sheep could be the disaster that ended everything. Adam rode into Pino's Altos with determination burning in his gut. He was going to help Harper save her ranch, whatever it took. The town was a small mining community that had seen better days, with a scattering of buildings clustered along the main road and mining operations visible in the hills beyond. Adam found the general store easily enough and went inside to place his order. The proprietor, a balding man with sharp eyes and a shrewd expression, looked over the list with interest. "This for the Ellsworth place. Harper trying to keep those wolves out finally." "That is right," Adam said evenly, not liking the man's tone. "Good luck with that," the proprietor said with a snort. "Those wolves have been plaguing these parts all winter. Several ranches have lost stock, though I suppose Harper has it worse than most, being a woman alone and all. Shame her father did not leave the place to someone who could actually run it." Adam felt his jaw tighten. "Miss Ellsworth is doing fine. She just needs the right tools and a bit of help." "If you say so," the man said, clearly not convinced. "Though between you and me, I would not invest too much effort in that place. Word is the Crazy K Ranch has been looking to expand their grazing land, and the Ellsworth property would suit them just fine. Once Harper admits she cannot handle it, they will buy her out quick enough." "Miss Ellsworth is not going anywhere," Adam said firmly. "Now, can you fill this order or not?" The proprietor shrugged and started gathering the supplies. While Adam waited, he wandered over to the post office corner of the store and sent a wire to Simon Hartley in Colorado, asking his former employer to send a reference to Pino's Altos General Delivery. It was not that he thought Harper would actually check on him, but he wanted her to know that she could if she wanted to. Trust had to be earned, and Adam was willing to put in the work. By the time Adam returned to the ranch, the sun was high and Harper was waiting anxiously in the yard. She helped him unload the supplies from his horse, and together they started on the fence improvements. The work was tedious and cold, their fingers going numb as they strung wire and attached bells to the top rail. But they worked well together, developing an easy rhythm where one would hold while the other hammered, switching off when hands got too cold or arms too tired. As they worked, they talked. Harper told Adam about growing up on the ranch, about learning to read from her father's books and learning to cook from her mother's patient instruction. She told him about the first time she had helped with lambing and how terrified she had been that she would do something wrong. Adam shared stories about his childhood on the farm in Ohio, about his brothers and their endless competitions to see who could work the hardest or the longest. He told her about learning to break horses, and about the first time he had been thrown and how his father had made him get right back on. "Your father sounds like he was a good man," Harper said, pausing to flex her sore fingers. "He was," Adam agreed. "Tough but fair. He always said that the measure of a man was not in how he handled success, but in how he handled failure. Anyone can be decent when things are going well, but it takes real character to stay decent when the world is kicking you down." "My father used to say something similar," Harper said softly. "He said that the only failure that mattered was the failure to keep trying." "Sounds like our fathers would have gotten along," Adam said with a smile. The thought made Harper smile too, a real genuine smile that lit up her whole face, and Adam felt that hook in his heart pull a little tighter. He was in trouble, he realized. Deep trouble. Because somewhere between this morning and now, between hammering nails and stringing wire, he had started to fall for Harper Ellsworth. It was not just her beauty or her determination, though both of those things drew him. It was the way she laughed at his jokes, the way she worked without complaining, the way she treated him like an equal instead of hired help. It was everything about her, and Adam knew with sudden certainty that he did not want this arrangement to be temporary. He wanted to stay here, on this ranch with this woman, for as long as she would have him. But he also knew that Harper had no reason to trust in permanence. She had lost both her parents, and now she was fighting to hold on to the only home she had ever known. The last thing she needed was some drifter cowboy making promises he might not be able to keep. So Adam kept his feelings to himself and focused on the work, determined to prove through his actions what he could not yet say with words. They worked until dark, finishing the fence improvements just as the last light was fading from the sky. The bells hung from the top rail, gleaming faintly in the twilight, and the fence now stood tall and strong. Adam walked the perimeter one more time, checking their work, and nodded with satisfaction. "This should do it," he said. "If the wolves try to jump this fence, we will hear them coming and they will find it a lot harder to get over. The cleared ground will make them think twice too." "Thank you," Harper said, and there was real gratitude in her voice. "I could not have done this alone." "You should not have to do it alone," Adam said before he could stop himself. "I mean, no one should have to handle all this by themselves. It is too much for one person." Harper looked at him for a long moment, and Adam wondered if she could see what he was really trying to say. But she just nodded and turned back toward the cabin. "Come on. I made a pot roast for dinner, and it should be ready by now." They ate together in the warm cabin, and the conversation flowed easily. Harper asked Adam about his time in Colorado, and he told her about the vast cattle drives and the brutal winters in the mountains. He described the camaraderie of the bunkhouse and the satisfaction of a hard day's work. In turn, Harper told him about the rhythms of sheep ranching, about the spring lambing season when she barely slept for weeks, making sure all the newborns survived. She talked about shearing day and how satisfying it was to see the wool bundled and ready for market. "You do your own shearing?" Adam asked, impressed. "I hire a crew," Harper admitted. "It is one of my biggest expenses, but I cannot do it alone. It takes skill and speed, and I only have one of those in small measure." "I have done some shearing," Adam said. "Not a lot, but enough to know the basics." "Maybe I could help with that when the time comes." Harper's eyes widened. "You would do that?" "If I am still here, of course I would," Adam said. "That is what partners do, they help each other." The word partners seemed to hang in the air between them, laden with possibility. Harper looked down at her plate, but Adam could see the faint smile on her lips, and it gave him hope. That night, as Adam settled into the barn again, he heard the distant howling of wolves. The sound was eerie and wild, echoing down from the mountains, and it made the sheep stir nervously. Adam checked his rifle and moved to the barn door, peering out into the darkness. He could see the fence line clearly in the moonlight, and the bells glinted along the top rail. Everything was quiet and still, but Adam stayed vigilant, ready for any sign of trouble. Hours passed, and the moon climbed higher in the sky. Adam was starting to think the wolves would stay away when he heard it, the faint jingle of bells from the far side of the pasture. He grabbed his rifle and slipped out of the barn, moving quickly and quietly across the frozen ground. As he approached the fence, he could see them, 3 gray shapes circling the perimeter, testing the fence with their eyes and noses. Adam fired a shot into the air, and the wolves scattered, disappearing into the tree line like smoke. He waited, watching, but they did not return. After several minutes, he heard the cabin door open and turned to see Harper standing on the porch in her nightgown and a heavy shawl, a shotgun in her hands. "Are they gone?" she called softly. "For now," Adam said, walking back toward the cabin. "The fence worked. They could not figure out how to get over it quietly, and when I fired, they ran." Harper sagged with relief. "Thank God and thank you. I did not even hear the bells, but I heard your shot." "Get some sleep," Adam said gently. "I will keep watch for the rest of the night." Harper hesitated, and Adam could see the conflict on her face. She wanted to argue, wanted to share the burden, but exhaustion was written in every line of her body. Finally, she nodded. "Wake me if you need me." "I will," Adam promised, knowing he would not unless things went truly wrong. Harper went back inside, and Adam returned to his post. He spent the rest of the night alert and watchful, but the wolves did not return. When dawn broke clear and cold, Adam allowed himself a moment of triumph. They had done it. They had protected the flock for one night, and if they could do it once, they could do it again. Over the next week, Adam and Harper fell into a routine. During the day, they worked on improving the ranch, fixing the barn roof, mending tack, and preparing for the spring lambing season that would begin in a few weeks. At night, Adam kept watch while Harper slept, and each morning they celebrated another night without losses. The wolves tried twice more to breach the fence, but each time the bells alerted Adam, and a warning shot sent them running. Harper found herself looking forward to the mornings when Adam would come in from the barn, cold and tired but triumphant. She would have coffee waiting and breakfast cooking, and they would sit together at the small table, talking about the day ahead. Harper had not realized how lonely she had been until she had someone to share her days with again. Adam had a way of making even the hardest work seem bearable, and his constant good humor and steady presence had become something she relied on. She was also becoming increasingly aware of him in other ways. The way his hands looked when he worked, strong and capable. The sound of his laugh, warm and genuine. The way his eyes softened when he looked at her, as if she were something precious. Harper had not thought much about romance since her father died. Survival had taken up all her energy and attention. But now, with the immediate crisis being managed, she had space to notice the flutter in her stomach when Adam smiled at her, the way her pulse quickened when their hands accidentally touched. It terrified her. Harper had never been in love before. She had been too busy helping her father, and the few young men in Pino's altos had never interested her. They had all seemed so shallow, so concerned with appearances and status. But Adam was different. He worked without complaint, he treated her with respect, and he seemed to genuinely care about her success. More than that, he made her feel safe in a way she had not felt since her father was alive. But Harper also knew that Adam was a drifter, a man who had spent the last 5 years moving from place to place. What if he got restless? What if he decided to move on as soon as the wolf threat was over? Harper did not think her heart could take another loss, and so she tried to guard it, to keep some distance between them, even as that distance seemed to shrink a little more each day. Adam was fighting his own battle. Every day he spent with Harper made him more certain that he wanted to stay, but he had no idea if she felt the same way. She was friendly and kind, but she never gave any indication that she saw him as more than temporary help. Adam wanted to tell her how he felt, wanted to take her in his arms and kiss her breathless, but he was terrified of ruining what they had. If he confessed his feelings and she did not return them, things would become awkward and he would have to leave. The thought of leaving Harper was becoming unbearable, but the thought of staying silent was almost as bad. 2 weeks after Adam's arrival, a warm spell hit Pino's altos, melting much of the snow and turning the roads to mud. Harper decided it was time to go into town for supplies and to check on the market prices for wool. She asked Adam if he wanted to come along, and he agreed readily, eager to spend more time with her, even if it was just for a ride into town. They hitched Harper's small wagon and drove the 3 miles together, talking about everything and nothing. When they reached Pino's altos, Harper headed for the general store while Adam took the wagon to the livery to have a wheel repaired that had been wobbling. They agreed to meet back at the store in an hour. Harper was looking over bolts of fabric, thinking about making some new curtains for the cabin, when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Well, if it isn't Miss Ellsworth. Still trying to play rancher, I see." Harper turned to find Tobias Mercer standing behind her, a smug smile on his face. Tobias was the foreman of the Crazy K Ranch, the same outfit that had been trying to buy her land. He was a big man in his late 30s, with a mean streak that he tried to hide under a veneer of charm. Harper had never liked him, and his presence made her skin crawl. "Hello, Tobias," she said coolly. "I am not playing at anything. I am running my ranch just fine." "Are you?" Tobias said, moving closer. "That is funny because I heard you were losing sheep to wolves. Seems like maybe you have bitten off more than you can chew." "I have the wolf problem under control," Harper said, stepping back to maintain some distance. "Do you? Because my boss is still interested in buying your land. In fact, he has authorized me to make you a new offer. More than fair, if you ask me. You could take the money and move somewhere easier, maybe back east where women belong." Harper felt anger flare in her chest. "I am not selling Tobias. Not to you, not to your boss, not to anyone. That land is mine and it is staying mine." Tobias's smile faded, and something cold entered his eyes. "You are making a mistake, Harper. A woman alone cannot run a ranch. Sooner or later you are going to fail, and when you do, the offer will not be as good." "Then I guess I had better not fail," Harper said, turning her back on him and returning her attention to the fabric. She heard Tobias mutter something under his breath, but he walked away, and Harper let out a shaky breath. She hated confrontation, hated the way Tobias made her feel small and stupid. But she had meant what she said. She was not giving up her ranch, no matter how hard things got. Adam found her a few minutes later, and he immediately noticed that something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked, concern written on his face. Harper told him about the encounter with Tobias, and she watched as Adam's expression darkened. "He has no right to talk to you like that. Do you want me to have a word with him?" "No," Harper said quickly. "That will just make things worse. Tobias is all bluster. He works for the Crazy K, but he does not make the decisions. As long as I keep refusing to sell, there is nothing he can do." Adam did not look convinced, but he nodded. "All right, but if he bothers you again, I want to know about it." The protective tone in his voice made Harper's heart flutter, and she found herself smiling despite the unpleasant encounter. "All right, I will tell you." They finished their shopping and headed back to the ranch, but the encounter with Tobias had unsettled Harper more than she wanted to admit. It was a reminder that her struggles were not just about wolves and weather. There were people who wanted her to fail, who were waiting for her to give up. The thought made her more determined than ever to succeed, but it also made her realize how much she had come to depend on Adam. Without him, she would be facing all of this alone, and the thought was terrifying. That night, as they sat together after dinner, Harper found herself studying Adam's face in the firelight. He was telling her a story about a cattle drive gone wrong, something involving a river crossing and a stubborn bull, and his eyes were bright with laughter. Harper realized that she had not felt this content, this happy, in months, maybe longer. Adam had brought something into her life that she had not even known was missing, and the thought of him leaving made her chest ache. "Adam," she said suddenly, interrupting his story. He stopped mid-sentence and looked at her with concern. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Harper said, trying to find the right words. "I just wanted to say thank you for everything you have done. You have helped me more than I can ever repay, and I want you to know that I am grateful." Adam's expression softened. "You do not have to thank me, Harper. I am happy to help. This place, it is the first time I have felt like I belonged somewhere in a long time." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Harper felt her breath catch, and she wondered if Adam could hear how fast her heart was beating. She wanted to say something, to tell him that she felt the same way, that she wanted him to stay, that she was falling for him. But fear held her tongue, and the moment passed. Adam stood up, clearing his throat. "I should get to the barn. Early start tomorrow." Harper nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She watched him go, and when the door closed behind him, she put her head in her hands and tried to sort through the tangle of emotions in her chest. In the barn, Adam leaned against the wall and cursed himself for a coward. He had been so close to telling Harper how he felt, so close to taking the leap, and he had chickened out at the last second. What was he afraid of? Rejection? Of course he was afraid of rejection. But he was even more afraid of never trying, of letting Harper slip away because he was too scared to speak up. Tomorrow, Adam promised himself. Tomorrow he would find the courage to tell her the truth. He just had to figure out how. The next day brought unexpected visitors. Harper and Adam were working in the barn, sorting through feed sacks and taking inventory, when they heard the sound of multiple horses approaching. They stepped outside to find 5 riders coming up the road, all of them wearing the Crazy K brand on their saddles. Tobias Mercer was in the lead, and his expression was not friendly. "Miss Ellsworth," Tobias said, not bothering to dismount, "we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Harper asked, moving to stand beside Adam. She was grateful for his solid presence at her side. "Those wolves that have been plaguing you have moved onto our range," Tobias said. "We lost 3 calves last night. The boss is not happy, and he thinks it is because you have made it too hard for the wolves to get your sheep. You have just pushed the problem onto us." Harper felt a flash of anger. "So what do you expect me to do? Make it easier for the wolves to kill my animals? We expect you to help us solve the problem permanently," Tobias said. "We are organizing a hunting party to track down the pack and eliminate them. We need every able-bodied person who has been affected by this. That includes you and your hired man here." Adam stepped forward. "When are you planning this hunt?" "Tomorrow at dawn," Tobias said. "We will meet at the Crazy K and head into the mountains from there. The wolves have a den somewhere up high, and we are going to find it and end this once and for all." Harper wanted to refuse, wanted to tell Tobias to handle his own problems, but she knew that would be foolish. If the wolves were eliminated, her sheep would be safe permanently and she would not have to worry about them anymore. It was the smart thing to do. "All right," she said. "We will be there." Tobias nodded, and there was a glint of satisfaction in his eyes that Harper did not like. "Good. Dawn tomorrow. Do not be late." He and his men turned their horses and rode off, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. "I do not like this," Adam said once they were gone. "Something about Tobias rubs me the wrong way." "Me too," Harper admitted, "but he is right about one thing. If we can get rid of the wolves permanently, it solves a lot of problems." "True," Adam said, "but we need to be careful. I do not trust Tobias or his boss." The next morning, Harper and Adam rode out before dawn, heading for the Crazy K Ranch. The sky was just starting to lighten in the east, and the air was cold and crisp. Harper had dressed in her warmest clothes and brought her father's rifle, while Adam carried his own Winchester and his revolver. They were both tense, aware that hunting wolves in the mountains was dangerous work. When they arrived at the Crazy K, they found a group of about 12 men waiting, all armed and mounted. Tobias was giving orders, dividing the men into groups and assigning sections of the mountains to search. He put Harper and Adam with 2 other men, ranch hands named Jack and Samuel, and sent them to cover the eastern slopes. The hunt began in earnest as the sun rose, the groups spreading out across the mountainside. Harper and Adam rode with Jack and Samuel, following the tracks and signs that might lead them to the wolf den. The terrain was rough and steep, with patches of snow still clinging to the shadowed areas. Harper's horse picked its way carefully over the rocky ground, and she kept her rifle ready, scanning the tree line for any sign of movement. They had been riding for about 2 hours when Jack suddenly reined in his horse and pointed toward a rocky outcropping ahead. "There. You see that? Looks like a den entrance." Adam studied the area carefully. "Could be. Let's approach carefully. Wolves will defend their den if they have pups inside." They dismounted and moved forward on foot, leaving the horses tied to some trees. As they got closer, Harper could see that Jack was right. There was a dark opening in the rocks, and the ground around it was littered with bones and signs of habitation. Adam motioned for them to spread out, creating a semicircle around the entrance. "Harper, you stay back," Adam said quietly. "If wolves come out, they will come fast, and I do not want you in the line of fire." Harper wanted to argue, but she knew Adam was right. She positioned herself behind a large boulder and readied her rifle, her heart pounding. Jack and Samuel took up positions on either side of the den entrance, while Adam moved to the center. He picked up a rock and threw it into the opening, shouting to spook any wolves inside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a snarl that made Harper's blood run cold, a massive gray wolf burst from the den, heading straight for Adam. He fired, but the wolf was fast, dodging to the side. Jack and Samuel fired too, and Harper saw the wolf stumble. Adam fired again, and this time the wolf went down, twitching and then still. Before anyone could relax, 2 more wolves exploded from the den. One went for Jack, who fired and missed, stumbling backward. The wolf was on him in a heartbeat, and Jack screamed. Samuel tried to get a clear shot, but Jack and the wolf were tangled together. Without thinking, Harper stood up and fired, her bullet catching the wolf in the side. It yelped and released Jack, turning toward her instead. Harper's hands shook as she tried to reload, but she was too slow. The wolf was charging, and she knew she would not get the rifle up in time. Then Adam was there, stepping between Harper and the wolf, firing his revolver twice in quick succession. The wolf dropped at his feet, and Adam spun, looking for the third wolf. Samuel had managed to kill it, and now the mountainside was silent except for Jack's labored breathing. They rushed to Jack's side and found him badly mauled, his shoulder torn open and bleeding heavily. Samuel tore off his shirt and used it to try to stop the bleeding while Adam fired 3 shots into the air, the signal they had agreed on to call for help. Within 20 minutes, Tobias and several other men arrived. They took one look at Jack and knew he needed a doctor immediately. 2 men fashioned a travois and started transporting Jack down the mountain while the rest of the group checked the den. Inside, they found the remains of the pack, 2 more wolves, both dead from what looked like starvation, and the bones of countless kills. "That is it then," Tobias said with satisfaction. "The pack is eliminated. The wolf problem is over." Harper should have felt relieved, but all she felt was shaky and sick. She had killed an animal today, and a man had nearly died. Adam seemed to sense her distress, and as soon as they were away from the others, he pulled her aside. "Are you all right?" he asked, his hands on her shoulders. "I killed it," Harper whispered. "The wolf, I killed it." "You saved Jack's life," Adam said firmly, "and you saved mine. That wolf would have gotten to you, and I might not have been fast enough to stop it. You did what you had to do, Harper. You were brave and quick, and I am so damn proud of you." His words broke through her shock, and Harper found herself leaning into him, letting him hold her while she caught her breath. Adam's arms came around her, strong and warm, and for a moment, Harper let herself feel safe. When she finally pulled back, she looked up into his face and saw something in his eyes that made her heart skip. "Harper," Adam said softly, "I need to tell you something." But before he could continue, Tobias called out that they were heading back, and the moment was lost. Harper and Adam rode down the mountain with the others, and by the time they reached the Crazy K, word had arrived that Jack was going to survive. The doctor had stitched him up and said he would recover, though he would carry the scars for life. Harper and Adam rode back to her ranch in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. It was only when they were back at the cabin, unsaddling the horses, that Adam finally spoke. "Harper, what I was trying to say earlier, I need you to hear this." Harper turned to face him, her heart in her throat. "All right." Adam took a deep breath. "I know I came here as hired help, and I know our arrangement was supposed to be temporary, but somewhere along the way this stopped being just a job for me. You stopped being just someone I was helping. Harper, I have fallen in love with you. I love the way you fight for what is yours, the way you refuse to give up even when things are hard. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you make me laugh. I love everything about you, and I do not want to leave. I want to stay here on this ranch with you for as long as you will have me." Harper felt tears spring to her eyes, but they were happy tears. "Adam, I have been so afraid to hope for this. I have lost so much, and I was terrified of losing you too, but I feel the same way. I love you. I think I have loved you since the day you rode up and offered to help. You have given me back my hope, and I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Adam closed the distance between them in 2 steps, and then his lips were on hers, and Harper was kissing him back with all the pent-up emotion of the past weeks. His arms came around her, pulling her close, and Harper melted into him, feeling like she had finally come home. The kiss was everything she had dreamed of and more, sweet and passionate and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "So is that a yes? Can I stay?" Harper laughed, the sound joyful and free. "Yes. Yes, you can stay. I want you to stay." They stood there in the barn, holding each other, and Harper felt a peace settle over her that she had not known in months. She was not alone anymore. She had Adam, and together they could face whatever came next. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of Harper's life. She and Adam worked the ranch together, preparing for the spring lambing season. Adam proved to be invaluable, helping with the difficult births and staying up through the night to make sure the newborn lambs survived. His experience with cattle translated well to sheep, and Harper found herself learning from him even as she taught him the specific skills of shepherding. The weather turned warmer, and the meadows began to green up. Harper's flock grew as the lambs thrived, and with no wolves to threaten them, the losses were minimal. The ranch was finally starting to turn a profit again, and Harper began to believe that she really could make a success of this on her own. Or rather, not on her own. With Adam. They had not talked about the future in specific terms, but it was understood between them that Adam was staying permanently. He had moved his things from the barn into the cabin, though he slept in the loft to preserve propriety. Harper knew that the townspeople would gossip, but she found she did not care. Adam was a good man, and their relationship was honorable. Anyone who wanted to think otherwise could keep their opinions to themselves. One evening in late April, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Adam took Harper's hand. "I want to ask you something." Harper turned to him, her heart suddenly racing. "What is it?" "I want to marry you, Harper. I know we have not been together long, but I have never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my days working this ranch with you, building a life together. Will you marry me?" Harper felt joy bubble up inside her, so intense it almost hurt. "Yes. Yes, Adam, I will marry you." Adam pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply, and Harper kissed him back with all the love in her heart. When they finally pulled apart, Adam reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold ring. "It was my mother's," he said softly. "My father gave it to me before he died, told me to give it to the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I would be honored if you would wear it." Harper held out her hand, and Adam slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "I will treasure it always." They were married a month later in a simple ceremony at the small church in Pinos Altos. Harper wore a new dress she had sewn herself, and Adam wore his best suit. The congregation was small, just a few friends and neighbors who had been kind to Harper over the years. Tobias and the Crazy K people were notably absent, but Harper did not care. This day was about her and Adam, about the love they had found and the future they were building together. After the ceremony, they returned to the ranch, which was now officially theirs together. Adam had added his name to the deed, and they were equal partners in every sense. That night, they celebrated their marriage in the privacy of their cabin, and Harper had never felt more complete. The years that followed were full of hard work and deep happiness. Harper and Adam built the ranch into one of the most successful sheep operations in the territory. They expanded the flock, improved the buildings, and earned a reputation for producing high-quality wool. The money was never abundant, but it was steady, and they lived comfortably. 2 years after their marriage, Harper gave birth to their first child, a son they named Henry after her father. Adam was a devoted father, and watching him with their baby made Harper fall in love with him all over again. Henry was followed 2 years later by a daughter they named Clara, and then another son they named James. The cabin became full of noise and laughter, and Harper marveled at how much her life had changed. On quiet evenings when the children were asleep and the ranch was peaceful, Harper and Adam would sit on the porch together, holding hands and watching the stars. They would talk about their day, their plans, their dreams for the future. And Harper would sometimes think back to that cold morning when she had stood in the snow, staring at the blood trail and feeling hopeless. She thought about how close she had come to losing everything, and how one man on a gray horse had changed her entire life. "What are you thinking about?" Adam asked one night, noticing her faraway expression. "Just how grateful I am," Harper said, squeezing his hand. "For you, for our family, for this life. I was so lost before you came, and now I cannot imagine being anywhere else or with anyone else." Adam brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I am the grateful one. You gave me a home, Harper, not just a place to live, but a real home. You gave me purpose and love and a family. I wake up every morning thankful that I heard about a shepherdess who needed help." "We helped each other," Harper said softly, "and we always will." As the years went on, Harper and Adam's love only deepened. They faced challenges together, from droughts to harsh winters to the occasional dispute with neighbors. But they faced everything as a team, and their partnership never wavered. Their children grew up strong and healthy, learning the values of hard work and honesty from their parents' example. When Henry was 10, Clara 8, and James 6, Harper found herself expecting again. This pregnancy was harder than the others, and there were moments when she worried. But Adam was there every step of the way, supporting her and caring for her. When she gave birth to twin girls, Margaret and Rose, Harper cried tears of joy. Their family was complete. Adam proved to be just as devoted to the twins as he had been to their older siblings. He would walk the floor at night with a baby in each arm, singing off key lullabies that made Harper laugh. He taught Henry and James how to work with the sheep, passing on the skills he had learned over the years. He helped Clara with her reading and encouraged her love of learning. He was everything Harper had ever hoped for in a husband and a father and more. The ranch continued to prosper. Harper and Adam added cattle to their operation, diversifying their income. They built a larger house, with enough room for their growing family and for the grandchildren they hoped would come someday. The old cabin became a storage building, but Harper could never bring herself to tear it down. It held too many memories, of her parents and of those early days with Adam when everything had been uncertain but full of possibility. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Harper with a trip to Denver. It was the first time either of them had left the ranch for more than a day or two, and Harper was nervous about leaving the children. But their oldest, Henry, was 22 now and more than capable of managing things for a week. Clara and James promised to help, and the twins, now 10, swore they would be on their best behavior. In Denver, Adam took Harper to a fine restaurant, bought her a beautiful new dress, and danced with her in a grand ballroom. It was magical and romantic, and Harper felt like a young girl again. On their last night, as they stood on the balcony of their hotel room looking out at the city lights, Adam pulled her close. "You have any regrets?" he asked quietly. "About marrying me, about staying on the ranch instead of seeing the world?" Harper turned to face him, cupping his face in her hands. "Not a single one. You are my world, Adam. You and our children and our ranch. I have everything I could ever want." "I love you, Harper Brooks," Adam said, using her married name with the same reverence he had used on their wedding day. "I love you too," Harper whispered. "Always and forever." They returned to the ranch renewed and refreshed, ready to face the next chapter of their lives. Henry eventually married a lovely young woman named Sarah, and they gave Harper and Adam their first grandchild, a boy named Adam Henry. Clara became a teacher in Pino's Altos. educating the next generation. James took over much of the day-to-day operation of the ranch, showing a natural talent for both sheep and cattle. The twins, Margaret and Rose, were inseparable and showed early signs of being as strong-willed as their mother. As Harper and Adam grew older, they gradually turned more of the ranch work over to their children, but they never stopped working entirely. Adam could be found most days checking the fence lines or helping with the animals, and Harper still kept a small flock of her favorite sheep that she cared for personally. They were in their 60s now, their hair gray and their hands gnarled from decades of labor, but their love was as strong as ever. One evening, 35 years after they had married, Harper and Adam sat on the porch of their big house, watching the sunset paint the New Mexico sky in shades of gold and crimson. Their grandchildren played in the yard, and the sound of their laughter filled the air. Harper leaned her head on Adam's shoulder and he wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "We did it," Harper said softly. "We built something that will last." "We did," Adam agreed. "And it all started because you needed help with some wolves and I needed a place to belong." Harper smiled. "I think it was fate. We were meant to find each other." "I think you are right," Adam said, kissing the top of her head. "Best decision I ever made riding up to this ranch that day. Best thing that ever happened to me, you saying yes when I agreed to let you stay," Harper said. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The land they had fought for, worked for, and loved for so many years stretched out before them, a testament to their determination and their love. And as the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Harper Ellsworth Brooks knew that her life had been everything she had ever dreamed of and more. She had faced loss and hardship, but she had also found love and built a legacy. And she had done it all with Adam by her side, the cowboy who had guarded her flock and then her heart, and who had never left either unprotected. The story of the shepherdess and the cowboy became a favorite tale among their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, passed down through the generations, as an example of how love and hard work could overcome any obstacle. And on quiet nights, when the wind blew down from the mountains and the sheep settled in the pastures, some said you could still hear the faint jingle of bells on the fence line, a reminder of the night Adam Brooks first proved his worth and won the heart of Harper Ellsworth. Years continued to pass peacefully. Harper and Adam celebrated their 40th anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The ranch had grown into something neither of them could have imagined in those early desperate days. Where once there had been just Harper and a struggling flock, now there were hundreds of sheep and cattle, managed by 3 generations of the Brooks family. Adam, now in his late 60s, still rose early every morning, though Harper often teased him that he moved a bit slower than he used to. His hair was completely white, but his eyes were still that same striking green that had caught her attention all those years ago. Harper herself had aged gracefully, her dark hair now shot through with silver, but her spirit remained as fierce and determined as ever. One spring morning, as they sat together drinking coffee on their porch, a young man rode up the drive. He looked to be in his early 20s, dusty from travel, sitting on a tired-looking horse. Harper and Adam exchanged glances, both remembering another young man who had arrived much the same way decades before. The young man dismounted and approached respectfully, removing his hat. "Morning, sir, madam. My name is Thomas Wheeler. I heard in town that you folks run a good operation here, and I was wondering if you might have any work available. I am willing to do anything, and I am a hard worker." Adam stood slowly, studying the young man with experienced eyes. Harper watched her husband, seeing the memories play across his face. She knew what he was thinking, knew what he was remembering. "Tell me, Thomas," Adam said finally. "What brings you to New Mexico?" "Lost my family's farm in Kansas," Thomas said honestly. "Drought took everything. I have been moving west, looking for a fresh start. I know ranching, worked cattle and horses all my life. Just need a chance to prove myself." Adam nodded slowly, then glanced at Harper. She smiled and gave a small nod. They had discussed this possibility many times over the years, about when it would be time to give someone else the kind of chance that had changed their lives. "We might have something," Adam said. "Our son James runs most of the daily operations now, but we could use another hand, especially with lambing season coming up. The pay is fair, and we provide room and board. You would bunk in the ranch house with the other hands. Interested?" Thomas's face lit up with hope and relief. "Yes, sir." "Very interested. Thank you, sir. I promise you would not regret it." As Thomas led his horse toward the barn, following the directions Adam had given him, Harper stood and moved to her husband's side. She slipped her hand into his and they stood together, watching the young man go. "Reminds you of someone?" Harper asked with a smile. "A bit," Adam admitted, pulling her close. "Think he will work out?" "I think anyone deserves the kind of chance you were given," Harper said. "The kind of chance that changed both our lives." Adam kissed her forehead gently. "You changed my life, Harper. You gave me everything I have." "We gave each other everything," Harper corrected. "That is what love does." They stood together on the porch, watching the ranch bustle with activity. Henry was in the far pasture with his sons, checking the sheep. Clara had come for a visit and was in the kitchen with her daughters, preparing the midday meal. James was working in the barn, and the twins were helping tend the vegetable garden that had grown exponentially over the years. It was a family enterprise in every sense, built on the foundation that Harper and Adam had laid so many years before. That evening, as had become their custom, the entire family gathered for dinner. The long table that Adam had built 20 years ago was crowded with 3 generations, and the noise was joyful and chaotic. Harper looked around at all the faces, saw the love and connection that bound them all together, and felt her heart swell with gratitude. After the meal, when the dishes were washed and the younger children were in bed, Harper and Adam took their usual walk around the property. It was something they had done together for 40 years, a way to check on the ranch and to have quiet time together. They walked hand in hand through the twilight, past the pastures where the sheep grazed peacefully, past the new barn that had replaced the old one, past the fence line where bells still hung, though they were rarely needed anymore. "You ever think about how different things could have been?" Harper asked as they paused on a small hill overlooking the ranch. "If you had not heard about my troubles in town that day, if you had ridden on to the next town." "Sometimes," Adam admitted. "But then I remember that some things are meant to be. I was supposed to find you, Harper. I was supposed to stay. Everything I went through before, all the moving and searching, it was all leading me here, to you." "I used to be afraid," Harper said quietly. "Afraid that you would leave, that this was all too good to last. But you never gave me any reason to doubt you, not once in all these years." "And I never will," Adam promised. "You are stuck with me, Harper Brooks, for whatever time we have left." They stood together watching the stars come out, just as they had done thousands of times before. The land was quiet except for the soft sounds of the animals and the whisper of the wind through the grass. It was peaceful, perfect, and exactly where they both belonged. As they walked back toward the house, they passed the old cabin where it all had begun. Harper paused, looking at the small building with fondness. "Should we finally tear it down, build something useful in its place?" Adam shook his head. "No, leave it. It is a reminder of where we started, of how far we have come. Besides, our grandchildren love playing in it." Harper smiled, knowing he was right. The children did love the old cabin, and she had seen them acting out the story of how their grandparents had met countless times. It was part of their family history now, as permanent and important as the land itself. Inside the house, they climbed the stairs slowly, their bodies tired from a full day. In their bedroom, Harper sat at her dressing table while Adam prepared for bed. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, seeing the lines on her face and the silver in her hair. But when Adam came to stand behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders and meeting her eyes in the mirror, she also saw the young woman she had been, full of fear and determination, and the young man who had ridden into her life and changed everything. "Still beautiful," Adam said softly, as if reading her thoughts. "Still charming," Harper replied with a smile. They settled into bed together, and Adam pulled Harper into his arms, her back against his chest, his arms wrapped around her. It was how they had slept for 40 years, and Harper could not imagine falling asleep any other way. "I love you," Adam murmured into her hair. "I love you too," Harper whispered back. "Always." The years continued to be kind to Harper and Adam. They celebrated their 45th anniversary, then their 50th. By then, they were in their 70s, and while their bodies had slowed, their minds remained sharp, and their love remained constant. They had handed over the majority of the ranch operations to their children, but they still liked to be involved, offering advice and wisdom gained from decades of experience. Thomas Wheeler, the young man who had arrived looking for work, had proven to be everything Adam had hoped. He worked hard, learned quickly, and showed real dedication to the ranch. Harper sometimes caught Adam watching Thomas with a paternal pride, and she knew her husband saw something of himself in the younger man. When Thomas married one of the girls from town and asked if he could build a small house on the ranch property, Adam and Harper agreed immediately, happy to see another generation putting down roots on the land they loved. One evening, as Harper and Adam sat on their porch watching the sunset, Adam reached over and took her hand. "Harper, I need to tell you something." The seriousness in his tone made Harper turn to look at him, concern flickering across her face. "What is it?" "Nothing bad," Adam assured her quickly. "At least, I do not think it is bad. I have just been thinking about our lives, about everything we have built together. And I want you to know that I have no regrets, not a single one. Every choice I made, every moment we shared, it was all perfect." "You made my life perfect, Harper." Tears filled Harper's eyes. "Why does this sound like goodbye?" "It is not," Adam said, squeezing her hand. "I just wanted you to know, we are not young anymore, and we do not know how much time we have left. I wanted to make sure you knew how much you mean to me, how much you have always meant to me." Harper leaned over and kissed him softly. "I know, I have always known, and you need to know the same. You saved me, Adam, not just my ranch, but me. You gave me a reason to hope again, a reason to believe in good things. You gave me love and family and a life beyond anything I could have dreamed. You are my everything." They held each other as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors. And in that moment, they both felt the weight of all the years they had shared, all the love they had built, all the memories they had created. It was a good weight, a blessed weight, and they carried it together as they had carried everything else. The seasons turned, and Harper and Adam continued their routine of walks and talks and quiet evenings together. They watched their grandchildren grow and marry, and they welcomed great-grandchildren with joy and wonder. The ranch continued to thrive under James's management, and the Brooks name became synonymous with quality and integrity in the region. On a warm summer evening, when Harper was 76 and Adam was 78, they took their usual walk around the property. The sun was setting in a blaze of orange and gold, and the air was sweet with the scent of grass and wildflowers. They walked slowly, Adam leaning on a cane now, but still steady and strong. They paused at the fence line where they had stood together so many times over the years. "Do you remember the first time we stood here?" Harper asked. "After you had finished putting up the new fence and the bells." "I remember every moment with you," Adam said simply. "That was the night I knew I was falling in love with you. I tried to deny it, tried to tell myself it was too soon, but my heart knew the truth." "Mine too," Harper admitted. "I was so scared of losing you, of this all being temporary, but you stayed. You always stayed." "There was nowhere else I wanted to be," Adam said. "There still is not." They turned back toward the house, walking slowly in the gathering dusk. Inside, Harper made them tea and they sat together in the living room, surrounded by photographs of their family and mementos of their life together. Adam sat in his favorite chair, and Harper sat beside him, her hand in his. They talked late into the night, reminiscing about the early days, about the challenges they had faced and overcome, about the children they had raised and the life they had built. They laughed over old jokes and shed a few tears over old sorrows. And when they finally went upstairs to bed, they held each other close, grateful for one more day together. Adam died peacefully in his sleep 3 weeks later, Harper still in his arms. He was 78 years old, and he had lived a full and happy life. The family gathered for the funeral, 3 generations coming together to say goodbye to the man who had built the foundation they all stood on. They buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch with a simple headstone that read, "Adam Brooks, beloved husband, father, and friend, he found his home." Harper mourned deeply, but she did not break. She had Adam's strength inside her, built up over 5 decades of love and partnership. She continued to live in the house they had built, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. She told stories about Adam to anyone who would listen, keeping his memory alive and vibrant. She lived for another 8 years, long enough to see her great-grandchildren grow, and to know that the ranch would continue for generations. She spent her days reading, gardening, and spoiling her youngest descendants. And every evening, she would walk out to the hill where Adam was buried and sit beside his grave, telling him about her day. When Harper finally passed away at the age of 84, she died with a smile on her face and Adam's name on her lips. They buried her beside him on the hill, and her headstone read, "Harper Brooks, beloved wife, mother, and shepherdess, she found her heart." The ranch continued to thrive, passed down through the generations, each one adding their own chapter to the story that had begun with a desperate woman and a wandering cowboy. The old cabin remained standing, preserved as a family monument, and children still played there, acting out the romantic story of their ancestors. And on quiet nights, when the wind blew just right and the moon was full, some said you could see 2 figures walking hand in hand through the pastures, checking the fence line one more time, watching over the land and the family they had created together. Whether it was truth or legend did not matter. What mattered was that Harper Ellsworth and Adam Brooks had found each other against all odds, had built something lasting and beautiful, and had loved each other faithfully until death and beyond. Their story became the foundation upon which generations were built, a testament to the power of love, determination, and the courage to take a chance on a stranger who might just turn out to be your destiny.